Oh, udah Pak, udah recording.
Oh, sudah ya? Oke.
Oke, ulang ya.
Yes,
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chunmoy. Thank you for your time, for all of your BFE team to attend this meeting. From Prodata, we have me, Chunmoy, Doni, Hadi, and Listiadi in this meeting. And we also invite a principal here, which is their name is Vijayakan. Hi, Vijayakan, inform yourself.
Hi, Chunmoy and team.
Yeah.
Morning, I'm Vijay Kant. I'm the technical account manager for the ITOM product for whole APAC region. And I've been with ManageEngine for about 10 years, helping our customers in various requirements and attending their needs to get the exact product what they want. And I've conducted many events in APAC region, including Indonesia. And I'm very happy to join this particular session. In case you have any queries with the product, I'll be happy to assist you here. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Vijayakan. And next, we also have Miss Sadana. Sadana, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. This is Sadhana here from ManageEngine, and I'll be the point of contact for APAC region in terms of all the product. And my role will be to handling the strategic account management. And if you have any questions in terms of any other product, so you can reach out to me.
Okay, yes, thank you, Sadana. It's great to have you here. Yeah, okay. And then the third is we have Selva. Hi, Selva. Could you please introduce yourself to our team member and BFE team?
Sure, Chinmoy. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. How are you? My name is Silva. I'm the pre-sales technician for APAC, China, Japan, and ANZ. I have been with ManageEngine for past 8 years. And I was taking care of applications manager. And right now I'm being allotted for taking care of all other ITOM products as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Salva. Okay, we have full team here from BFE and then also from Prodata, and then we invited principal also. Hi, Pak Ruben.
Ya, Bu Chunmoy.
Yes, Pak Ruben, yeah, we already complete here as per your requested that we should involve our principal to give all of you a clear explanation regarding our solution, correct? Yes. Okay. So which one will be the first question from BFE or from Prodata first? Because we already sent you the document. Maybe have you received it? The document, Doni, have you sent the document to whom? Could you please inform them? Halo.
Oh ya baik Bu, ini saya cek dulu.
Okay. Have you sent the document?
Oh, Pak Ruben mungkin bisa dicek di emailnya Pak Ruben.
Okay, Doni, could you please share screen your document that we just sent to BFE team?
Okay. Ibu sudah terlihat, Bu?
Okay, let me see first. Okay, I'm sorry, Vijayakan, Sadana, Selva, this is in Indonesia language, but this is regarding the question from the customer. Okay, Pak Ruben, have you had time to check the question, the document that we just sent?
Yeah. Pak Dion, mungkin bisa dijelasin Pak Dion untuk pertanyaan kita terkait teknis yang nomor 1 dan 2 dan 3 ini.
2 ya.
Ya.
Oke.
Okay.
Oke. Should I speak in Indonesia ya?
Oh no, speak in English is better, Pak Dion. So we don't have time, we don't need to translate
Oh, okay.
it again. Yeah, Pak Dion.
Okay. Right.
Yeah,
Okay. Question number 1. We have a query about AOD. AOD means end of day. It's a process in the end of day or in the end of month. This query contain 2 fields. For example, value in percentage and then timestamp. AOD process usually 2 hours. So we need a dashboard and also alert based on query. Dashboard will visualize the percentage in every 15 minutes. Yeah, so means interval, and then alert send every 15 minutes. So the question is, can the system handle this case? That's number 1, and then number 2.
Sorry,
We
Pak
have.
Dion. Sorry, Pak Dion.
Yeah.
Can you give the? Can we answer one by one rather than we answer?
Oh, okay. Okay, no problem. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, no problem.
So
Okay.
make you are all easier for understand regarding the question of this your question, right? Okay, Vijayaka
Okay.
and Selva and this ask regarding this question.
Hello. Yeah, hello. Allow me to a little bit explain about the scenario. Yeah, so
Okay,
yeah, based on a customer requirement, I'm getting the requirement that customer need to have monitoring regarding one of the process of the operation.
yeah,
The
right.
operation basically using SQL query, right? So the
Yeah,
SQL
right.
query will running, and then it will taking time about 2 hours, and then the SQL query will generate a value that we need to monitor every 15 minutes. So
Yeah.
we need to implement this on OPManager. So another one is we also need the value will be sent to email or notification also.
Yes.
Okay, to answer this question, this is Selva here.
Yes.
You said that it's a SQL query. The query that you are trying to monitor, is it some kind of data that will be fetched from the database? For example, let's say a student database. So are you going to fetch number of students from that table and then monitor it like that?
Yeah, like that. The value will increase every 15 minutes. Yeah. So basically, it will start from 0, and then step by step it will increase. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until 100, and every 15 minutes, the dashboard or the alert visualize that. Maybe, for example, for the 15 minutes, for the first 15 minutes, it will display, for example, 10%, and then the second 15 minutes, it will display 30%, like that.
Sure. I mean, if you have the SQL query that can give us that data, we can make use of database query monitor in applications manager using the select query if you have. May I know what type of database it is? Is it SQL or
SQL
MySQL?
Server. The SQL
Microsoft.
Server. SQL Server, yeah, Microsoft.
Microsoft. Okay, got it. Thank you. So the one way is that you have the select query, and that query will give us the data. We can monitor that data. It could be a count, it could be numbers, it could be percentage. So based on the SQL query, yes, we can monitor it in Applications Manager. And let's say you have a count. So there are error count in the particular application. If it increased by 15 within, let's say 10 minutes, you should get an alarm. So for that, we have an option where you can create threshold value and associate to that query. So if there is a breach, you will get a notification either in UI, or you can configure email action as well, or SMS.
Yes, Selva. I think the customer need all value that will be generated by the query will always be sent. So just like I explained to customer, maybe we can set the threshold as low as possible, right?
Yeah,
So
I mean, that is up to you. I just
whenever,
gave an example.
yeah, whenever the value generated, it will showing on monitoring and send the notification.
Yeah, depending
So in
on the,
this case,
sorry.
okay. So in this case, the threshold will be 0, yeah, or
Yes,
at
if you want
at minimum
the,
at.
yeah, yes, correct, Pak.
Oh, okay.
If
Okay,
you
go on,
want
please.
the value other than 0 will send notification, then you have to set the threshold on a 0 or minimum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or maybe any other demo that we can show that we can.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. Please. So if there is a demo, please show us.
How can we do this?
Hold on, let me check if I can share my screen. Give me a second. So you guys able to see my screen?
Okay, okay.
All right,
Got
let me
your
just,
screen.
yeah, maximize it. So I have two app manager, just in case, if data is not available, I can switch over to the tab and show you what are the options that we have. So application manager has around 120 plus application components that you can monitor. So as you know, in order to monitor web application or successful web application itself, you need various layers of monitoring. So what I term is like layer 1 to be component level monitoring, individual component. Second is the application transaction level. And then the third is the website. So apart from that, the query monitor that we are talking about falls under custom monitor types. So if I click on the database query monitor, we can create a select monitor type, and the query can be given and the data will be fetched. Now it could be it could display various types of values, but most oftenly we will monitor the numeric value. So let me take an example. So here the numeric value is like execution in millisecond. So if we want to configure the alarm, we can configure the alarm once the data comes in. So if you say that the exception count should be minimum, yes, as Hadi stated, that we can have minimum of 0, like anything greater than 0 should be critical. So we can trigger an alarm. And we have the option called as polling interval. Polling interval is the frequency with which we connect to the database, collect the data. So every 5 minutes is the default one. You can increase the minutes for collecting the data. So this is one way to monitor a specific select query from the database. Now, in case if you want to monitor at SQL level, we have a separate monitor type called as Microsoft SQL. Okay. So Microsoft SQL Server will give you more in-depth information of how SQL Server is performing. I'll come back to this later. So with database query monitor, you can monitor the select query, and based on the data that we get, we can configure the threshold value in order to generate an alarm. Over to you. Hello, Ruben.
Hello, yeah.
Yeah. So I think I answered the question.
Oh, so have you finished the demo?
Oh, okay. I thought like, we are going the questions one by one. So I thought like we are going through the document that was shared by ProData.
Okay.
Or do you want a full-fledged demonstration of Applications Manager? How you want to
Yeah.
go?
Of
Yeah,
course.
like
I need to know the how to visualize the value, that value.
Sure.
How?
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
instead of going through document, let me complete the demonstration of Applications Manager. And then we can then
yes,
switch
sir.
back to.
Yes, Selva. I was Vijaykanth here. I was about to tell you that. So, team, I think Selva can explain you walk you through the whole APM features. What are the available features, and then if you have any queries with that particular document, we can discuss about that document at the end of the session. Will that be okay with you?
Uh, sorry.
No. First, Selva would explain the whole features of Application Manager. He would give a complete demo for the product. And then if you have any queries, probably we can discuss about the documents. What are the queries you have in the document? We can discuss about that later. Will that be okay?
Okay.
Okay. Yes, hello. Please continue.
All right. So thanks for this. So let me, start from scratch about Applications Manager. So
Yeah.
Application Manager is an on-prem agentless monitoring solution. And we have around 120 plus application components to be monitored. Now, let's take an example. And with that, let me start my demonstration. Okay. Let's say that you have a web application, and that web application is deployed over multiple platforms. Let's say you have SQL Server, IIS Server, you have Tomcat, you have JBoss. It uses a middleware, maybe in RabbitMQ or WebSphere MQ. It may also use multiple other application servers like WebLogic, WebSphere. You may also use a reverse proxy server like Nginx. You may also use a database server or multiple type of database servers like SQL, Microsoft SQL or Oracle, or maybe NoSQL server database type. So all these components should run on top of host machine as well. So we need host machine for installing these components, individual components. And now once you run the application, it communicates with all the components that you use in order to run that application successfully. Now, it is important for us to monitor individual level monitoring performance. So server level monitoring, yes, you can do it in OPManager, but application component level monitoring, you can full-fledgedly do it in Applications Manager. Now, let's start with database monitor. Now, when I say database monitor, we capture the performance of SQL Server or any type of that we support. For example, if I take the SQL Server here, we can capture the performance statistics of that SQL. So cache hit ratio, buffer hit ratio, access method, connection statistics, latch information, log details, etc. Not only these, but we also capture certain performance metric that will help the end user to identify if there are any performance bottleneck in the SQL Server itself. The one performance bottleneck would be based on the queries that are getting executed. So here we have an option to show you the filters, which queries are taking more CPU or which queries are taking more IO, which queries are running slow or the queries that are blocked. So like that, we have few around 10 filters And with that, we can capture the, we can click on the filters and choose the database that we want, from where we have to see the queries that are affecting the performance. Or we can leave the default and scroll down to see the actual data that is causing the problem. For this, let me jump to my demo app manager. Just give me a second to show you the data itself. So if I click on top CPU and scroll down, you can see the exact query that are getting executed during that time, and what is the average execution time in terms of milliseconds. So we can capture such data through our MS SQL monitor type. And then not only that, we also can capture individual databases for performance metric that are being configured in that SQL server. So when I say individual database, you may have n number of databases configured. So with individual DB, we can capture the data file log size and the log file size. We can capture the system relation, fragmentation detail, index detail, system data. We can pull it out from our individual database itself. This will give you an information on, okay, in which database the high number of datas are stored, and if yes, in which table it is being stored. So all those information we can fetch from our database tab. Likewise, we have other options like sessions that are being initiated in the SQL server, and through the session, what are all the various types of sessions that are in blocked state or that are in locked state. We can actually capture those two categories and show you here in our applications manager along with the process ID. And we also show you the queries that are actually getting executed. So this will give you a rough idea on the various types of SQL queries that are getting in or getting executed in that SQL server and taking more resources. So this is in terms of monitoring the SQL server. Likewise, we have jobs. If there are jobs that are getting executed and if it is failed, we have an option to see the history of the alarm. So we have that option to show you what type of exception it is. And if there are any exceptions, we can see what type of error exceptions that it has. And then backup, restore, replication, user information, we can capture that. Not only that, in case if you are using always on functionality in MS SQL Server, you can still be able to monitor it. So this is one component in the web application, that is SQL Server. Let's take the application server. May I ask you, like, what type of application server are widely used in your environment?
SQL Server.
SQL.
I mean, the application server, whether it's Tomcat or WebLogic.
Bisa jawab, Pak.
Shall I take
Halo, Pak
Tomcat
Ruben.
as an example?
Ya, Mas Dion.
As far as I know, ini ada pertanyaan di tempat kita sistem yang mostly dipakai apa ya? Berbasis Microsoft ya sepertinya ya.
Pak Budi mungkin bisa secara teknik.
Mostly. Okay, maybe I question in English. There is a question. What system mostly we use in PFI? Maybe Microsoft ya.
Okay. Are you running any web application?
Go on. For one or two application, yes.
And what application server those are?
Web application, yes.
Is it .NET based or Java
mostly
based?
Mostly in is .NET based.
.NET based. So it should be IS server. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyhow.
Mostly IS server.
Okay, got you. So we have application server. So various types of application servers we have, and each server will have its own performance metric that we can monitor depending on the vendor. And here in IS server, what we capture is we capture the application pool statistics and website statistics. So these are the key important attributes that you can monitor in IS server. Likewise, you may have the virtual environment or Kubernetes or KVM that you can monitor, and maybe a cloud applications that you might have subscribed for. So you can also monitor Amazon, Azure, and Office 365. So with respect to this, what else we can monitor are the key important features of Applications Manager. The first level, we have seen that individual component that requires to run a web application, we can monitor it, like SQL, IIS. We have Docker container that we can monitor. We have Kubernetes. We have vCenter, VMware, server monitoring. So all these are the important individual components that we need for us to run a web application successfully. Now, there are other scenarios with which user would like to monitor their application. Now, if you see the SQL Server, it's going to give us the performance metric of SQL Server alone and the queries that are getting executed. But what if your web application supports REST API? And through that REST API, you want to fetch certain data and you want to monitor it. For that reason, we have a monitor type called as REST API monitor. So what happens is, if in case you have an API based on XML, JSON, or text-based, we can enter the REST API data, and through that, we can capture the statistics of the API data and start monitoring that API. So let me show you a quick example. Just give me a second. So that's one way you can monitor or custom monitor your application. The second way with which you can monitor is using database query monitor. Because in SQL Server Monitor that I showed you, it's all the queries that are getting executed. A specific data, if you want to monitor through the query, then we have database query monitor for you. So that database query monitor can show you the information pertaining to a specific data or specific table or specific query or specific field. It is up to you to choose what type of select query that you want to get, multiple value or single value, like count value, etc. So coming back to the REST API, this is one of our HTML. So you need to enter the content of the API, the URL, and then write the XSLT code for XML data or JSON schema for JSON based data. So once we enter that and we capture the specific field, we will be able to monitor the REST API data in Applications Manager. And then you can configure the threshold value and start getting the alarm based on the value if it breaches. Now, the database query monitor, as I showed you, it should be a select query. The select query, what you can do is you can enter the data, enter the query, and then based on the query value, you can get the count. So, and based on the count, we can actually configure the alarm. So based on the count attribute, we can choose the threshold value, threshold profile we need to create depending on our choice or your choice. And then based on the value, if it breach, you're going to get an alarm. So this is about the database query monitor. And now all these are individual level. All right. So individual level in the sense, each component with its own performance metric, we can capture it. Now, what if you want to capture the performance metric at transaction level? So which transaction is taking more time? Which query is taking more time in that code? Is there any error in the code itself? Whether we can capture certain performance metric and troubleshoot that specific transaction. Is there any way? Yes. Using our APM Insight module, you can capture the performance of the transaction that is carried out between the various components. Now, let me give you an example. Let's take a simple example that you're launching a browser, Chrome, and you're accessing the application. When you are accessing the application, it is asking you for entering the password, username and password. Now, when you enter the username and password, what exactly happens? It passed through the firewall. Firewall allows it, and then you reach the application server. And through the application server, it redirects you to the database. And through the database, there you check the credentials that you have entered and then written the acknowledgement, and then you log in. So there are multiple transaction that happens, that you connect to the application server, in turn database, and then in turn to application server, and then return back to the browser. Now, this transaction has to be monitored. Yes, you can monitor the individual performance, that's fine. But where the exact issues, that there are scenarios where you may get 404 error code or 503 bad gateway error code, etc. So how we can capture that? Or it could be an issue in the query, in the code itself, where a user might have entered a continuous loop code wherein it is, keep on executing it and not allowing the user to log in or doing any other activity. For that reason, we have APM Insight. We have APM Insight for .NET, Java, Ruby on Rails, PHP, and Node.js. These are the 5 types with which we can use. Please note that the APM Insight is agent-based. So the .NET or Java, any application server, here in your case, it's IIS, you need to install this .NET agent where the IIS server is running, or where the application is hosted. So once we get that, once we install it, our .NET agent will talk to the IIS server, collect the data, and then push to applications manager. Now let me show you what are all the key features or key attributes that we can monitor here in our .NET based web application. So APM Insight, in the overview tab, you can see the AppDex score, average response time, throughput, errors, percentage, etc. You can see the response time broken by components. Components like whether it's an app, SQL, or HTTP call, or etc. Even we have an option to see the background transaction, whether it's an HTTP or overall response time. Then we have AppDex score for you, throughput, exception count, error count in that specific overall transaction. And then what is the split up of execution? I mean, the exceptions. What type of exceptions are there? Error rate. And then comes the major part, whether the top 5 transaction by response time, slow traces, 5 exception traces, error transaction. Now, if I click on any of the error transaction, I can click on it and see which transaction name is having this specific exception. So I can capture that. And I can also see the Java, the exceptions that are occurring. I can click on it and see which transaction name is again having this specific error. Even raw data we can pull, collection time, exception time, we can pull the information. And then if I scroll down and click on any one of the transaction, slow transaction, if I click on this admin action and do, this is one of the transaction, right? So if I click on it, it's going to give us the information pertaining to that specific transaction. And on the right-hand side, you can see the slow transaction, at what time it has happened, broken by components, throughput details of that specific admin action and do, that specific transaction. And this, like when you click on from the overview tab, it's going to take us to us in the transaction tab. And let's say you are clicking on this request time, what happens is take us to the traces tab, where we can see the summary of the trace. The best thing here is the trace information, because using this only, the DevOps team or application team will come to know where the issue is. For example, in the summary, you can see the slowest method calls and what is the count of it, what is the external count, etc. And if you see this tab trace detail, we can show you which method was called during that time and what are all the SQL queries that are getting executed within that call. So if it is related to SQL query, definitely the millisecond will be higher here. But since the execution time is less, probably there could be some issues with the method that are getting invoked. So we have a separate tab for SQL statement. If there are any remote calls, we can pull the data. And if that is the case, we can show these information to our application team so that they can take care of if there are any issue in the code or database. Now, coming back to the transaction tab, we do have an option where we can show all the web transaction that are happening, or we can configure a key option or configure key transaction on the right hand side. If you see here, we can select certain key transaction and start monitoring it, not all. And then the selected key transaction, it will be visible under key tab. So here on the left hand side, if you see, there is a key where it will only show the selected transaction. And then comes the exception tab, wherein we have options to show you the exceptions that are occurring. This is same what we have seen in the overview tab. Now, in the recent release, or I would say recently, we have introduced features like service map. So in the service map, we show what application and what are all the components that are connected to and which IP is connecting to it. So you can drill down to that level. And when you click on that IP or the value, it will take us to the service map view where it shows the host name and what is the response time that it is connecting to and executing the query, what is the throughput information and all. And then we have app parameters. App parameters is like kind of a custom instrumentation wherein you inject a code in your code itself. And through that specific method, we can capture some values and show you here. So it's like a customized data that you are fetching from the code. And then another important feature that we have introduced is thread profile. Let's say you want to see if there are any thread dumps that have that you want to verify during that transaction. Then it's an on-demand based thread profiling, wherein you can pull the thread dump and see which code or which exceptions that are occurring in the transaction, in that specific transaction. Now, this is about the application performance level. And then we have option where you can monitor website. Obviously, if it is a web application, you access it through the browser. So there are two ways with which you can monitor website. One is the basic one, like URL or URL sequence monitoring, wherein you capture the URL, you monitor it from application manager machine. So what happens is the URL monitor will connect and collect the data from the machine where app manager is installed. Now, let's say you want to understand how a user is performing outside the firewall. For that reason, we have end user monitoring, wherein you can make real browser monitoring. You mimic the user interaction, you record that step, and then continuously play it back from the remote location. So you get a real-time statistics about how the website is loading outside the firewall. If your application is used publicly, then you can make use of this feature. Or if you want to test it locally, again, you can make use of this feature as well. So it is up to you. And then we record the step, and the step will be played back from the remote location. And then each transaction, or based on the polling interval, we will capture the data and show it to the user. So here we capture the page load time, health statistics, screenshot of the transaction that were captured during the recording, and then the waterfall model. So waterfall model will give us give us more information in terms of what is causing the problem. The reason is you will get the resource name, any URL that is getting accessed. What is the content type it is, whether it's a HTML, whether it's a JavaScript, whether it's a video, or whether it's a HTML, etc. So with that, you can categorize. If it is video, obviously, maybe the video size you have to reduce. If it is a JavaScript, then you have to verify if it is a application level problem. If it is a HTML, then of course we can see if it is a network issue or whether it's a issue in the page itself. So here we show the color coding information. So green refers to network latency, and the blue color represents download time. So because of this, there is a high connection time for this website. So if that is the case, we can see the download time, whether it's an internet issue at customer end or whether it's an issue at the infrastructure level, where the upload traffic is high or low. And then the network latency, there are two ways, where one is from our end, where our server might be having low bandwidth, or at customer end. So for our level, we can use our OPManager and other item suites of products to monitor the network level network infrastructure monitoring. We can use that tool. So end user monitoring will give you the website level statistics. Through that, we can drill down to APM Insight to monitor the transaction level. If APM Insight is also good, then we can see the resource level, whether it's a SQL Server issue or whether it's an IIS or whether it's a server level issue. So with these three stages, you can monitor the application infrastructure effectively. And of course, you have our network monitoring solution, OPManager, to monitor your network related devices. So if there are any issues, we can remediate that. And now coming to the options, what are all the other options that we have? Of course, definitely there are few important pillars, I would say, in if you use any monitoring solution. One is alerting, report, monitoring, and SLA management. So we have seen what type of monitoring part already in Application Manager. We will see what type of reporting features that we have. So under reports tab, you can either pull manual reports by going into each device. For example, let me take SQL Server. I'm sorry, I clicked on MySQL, but it's common. Here you can see the 7 days report or 30 days report. You can click and pull. It's an ad hoc report or on-demand report that you can pull, manual report. Under reports tab, we have various categories where you can pull group level report, trend analysis report, or category wise. If it is database server, I can click on database server and choose MS SQL and then pull the report specific to SQL Server. That is all SQL Server in bulk. And then we also have an option where you can schedule the report daily, weekly, or monthly basis. You can schedule the report. You can pull the information. And then we do have options where you can pull the forecast report for database, where you can pull the forecast report. It's a latest feature that we have introduced, and it's based on machine learning. So depending on the attribute that you choose, we predict the growth trend and show you when the specific attribute is going to run out of resource. So let's say in 1 month, what will be the growth trend? In 3 months, what will be the growth trend? So like that, we predict and show you the growth trend. And with this, you can mark your calendar and make sure you provide ample resource to the specific devices so that the application or the infrastructure is working without any problem. So that's where our forecast report comes into picture, and it will be very handy because it's going to give us the date or approximate prediction date where this resource is going to run out of space. And then we have a lot of other admin activities within the tool. See, in SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server, you may want to monitor jobs. And when you start monitoring it, there are a lot of jobs that are running and may overload the SQL Server. Now, in that case, what we have done is for individual type, here as an example, I'm showing you for SQL, we have an option where you can customize how the data collection should happen for certain attributes. So here, if you take backup for SQL Server, if you want to collect every hour, you can choose, or once in a day, you can choose, or every polling, or never collect data. So these are the 4 criteria with which you can adjust how the data collection should happen for SQL Server. Likewise, we have options for other monitor types, wherein you can customize how the data collection should happen. Now, these are a few key important administrative options that we have. One is the performance polling I mentioned. The other one is configure alarm. This is a template wherein you can associate actions and threshold value in bulk for various attributes. For example, I can choose the SQL Server. And if I want to associate the buffer hit ratio, I can click on it, choose the threshold value, and then I can very well, associate and enable it, which means for all the SQL Server that are being added in our application manager, this threshold value will get associated automatically. And when you add a new SQL Server, the same type will get associated automatically. So you are saving a lot of time by going in individual server and then configuring it. Instead of that, you can use our templates. Likewise, we have various types of actions, starting with email. We have SMS. We have execute program where you can run a script. We have a integration with Manage Engine Service Desk Plus or ServiceNow, where once an alarm is triggered, it will trigger an ticket in the help desk tool, and few other specific to the monitor types. Like for Tomcat, we can create thread dump, heap dump. We have cloud action, virtual machine action, container, SQL job action, etc. Even Slack integration is also there. You can make use of it. And apart from that, we have user management. So user management, where you can restrict certain users to access the certain components. So this will be applicable if you are using our application manager as a standalone. If not, we can make use of the OPManager user within application manager plugin. And then we have alarm escalation. Certain log rules are there. So alarm escalation in case if an alarm is not rectified within certain time limit that you set, we can trigger the alarm to the next level or to the manager. So now let me pause here and ask you if you have any questions.
Pak Ruben and team, do you have any question regarding the demo that provided by Salva?
Okay,
Mas
thank you
Dion,
for
Pak
explanation.
Nandus.
Yeah.
Ya, Pak Nandus.
Mungkin. Oke, silakan Mas Dion.
Yeah, maybe return to the question ya. Okay, for number one. So it confirm ya, it can ya, it could ya. For custom query. Maybe can you show us the demo that to show us that it is possible to implement?
Yes, Dion. Like we provide 30 days full trial version. So if you allocate a server, and if you install our solution, we can directly do a POC on your machine to show you the show you the data or information real time based on your environment itself.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a demo on your site that can be shown to custom query and show the value?
Yeah.
Any demo like
correct.
that?
We already. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it is correct. Maybe can show us write custom query and then show us the value.
Okay, I'll show you like how it works. Okay, if I go ahead and edit this monitor, this is one of our database, and we have one select query here. So what we are trying to do or achieve here is to get the number of count from the event table. So we are getting the select query count, and then we are showing the query output in the UI and updating it. If you have additional, let's say, query, let me do this.
Ya, nanti aja Bu. Kasih ya Bu.
So what I've done is I've changed the table name. There are two queries now. One is event table and the other one is alert table. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this query and let me see if it works. All right.
Okay.
So what I'm doing is I'm taking the count of it. I'm taking the count of it. So now, let me update it. So let's wait for a few seconds. So here you can see the alert data came. Okay.
Okay.
So now every poll, the data will be taken into account and it's going to show us the count. Now here in database query monitor, what we have to do is we have to configure the count value. We have to create a threshold value. So let me select the primary key here. So primary key is the one that is unique. So I'm going to select that and let me just hold the monitor. So there are two queries now. One is event, one is alert. It is showing us the execution time, and then the data will be fetched depending on the value that we set. So here I'm going to set it as count. And here also I'll set it as count.
So,
So
the
once,
count should increase, yeah, step by step, yeah, if we hit intervally.
yeah, the next step would be is to configure the threshold value.
Okay.
Right now, what I did is I'm monitoring the count of the individual table, event table and alert table. Am I correct? Now, if I want to get an alarm, if the event table is not greater than 1000, then I have to create a threshold value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new threshold profile. So this is where I create a threshold profile, which is count. So if it is greater than, let's say, 2000, maybe 2000, I should get a critical alarm. If it is greater than or equal to 1500, I should get a warning alarm.
It's a millisecond or second, sir? 2000 is millisecond or seconds?
No, this is count numbers.
Oh, count. Oh,
Count,
sorry.
not
Okay.
second.
Second,
I
yeah.
mean,
Okay.
you are correct. Like if the unit is second, you have to give the second value. If the unit is millisecond, you have to give the millisecond value. Right now, I'm creating a number based on the count for that specific database query monitor. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this threshold profile. So I'm going to create this, and the count profile is available here. As you can see, the count value is here. Now I'm going back to the monitor that I've created. That is the database query. I think it should update. Now, if you see, now the alarm has gone, and you can see the count value. Okay. Now the count value is here, and the event value is here. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that threshold value. So for count, I'm going to select the threshold value, and then I can select the action, email or SMS. Based on that, I can save it.
Okay. Sir,
And
how
then
about the send to Telegram or WhatsApp, sir?
Integration with that, what you can do is there are two ways with which you can do. Let me show you. Let me first finish off with this.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
So count, and then this is the threshold value, and I'm going to apply it and save it. So what happens is for these two table, for the count attribute, I've associated a threshold value. So after the next poll, since this is I mean, it's like around 25, 25K. So obviously this will turn into red, and the action that we have associated will be executed. So based on the threshold value that we have created here in the threshold profile page, that value will be executed against the value that we fetch from the database query. If it breach, you are going to get an alarm. So that's how the principle is. Now, once the alarm is triggered, under alarms tab, you will see all the alarms in the UI. Or if you create a dashboard, you can see it in the dashboard. If you want to trigger that as an email action, I've showed you various types of options available. Actions. One is you can trigger email. We also have option where you can integrate SMS gateway. And if the WhatsApp or Telegram that you have can process our email that we send, then you can make use of it. WhatsApp in the sense like SMS action. If we send an SMS data, to the WhatsApp number. If you are able to distribute it, then fine, you can use it. Otherwise, out of the box, at the moment, we do not have integration with WhatsApp and Telegram.
Okay.
Hello, Selva. Sorry to jump
Hello.
in. Selva, sorry, I want to ask something.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, you showed to us how the way we create the alert based on the threshold, right?
Mhm.
So the first we can set the threshold for the value if maybe example more than 80% will be critical and there is alert, etc. And the question is how we can set the alert based on time interval, Selva. In this case, as Pak Dion already mentioned, we have the AOD process and we need to monitoring the percentage of the process AOD. So we need the alert time interval 15 minutes, I say. 15 minutes, let's say. So we need to monitor the process of an OD. We need to know the how how much the percentage already do in the AOD based on this alert Salva. So we need send every 15 minutes. So we need to grow the increase to know the grow the increase of the AOD. So we know the process is still running, not stuck or suspend or something. That's my question, Alpha. Could you please show to us how the create the alert, something like that?
Okay.
You got my
Uh,
question?
so this is with respect to process you are talking about. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Is it a Windows Server process or what
No,
process it
the
is?
the customer mean that the notification sent based on alert, it will send continuously.
Yes, every 15 minutes. So we need to know the increase of the percentage of the process. So based on the
Can we
result from the SQL Server
yes,
queries.
can we send the alert repeatedly?
Yeah. We have an option. Under alarm and action settings, if you see here, this is the repeat action execution command. So if you want to send it continuously, we have an option. So if the monitor can execute action repeatedly until it is up, yes, we have that option, but it is a global one where it will affect all the monitors that you have added.
So it is not possible to create the repeat alarm for one monitor only?
Yes, we can. How we can do it? This is a generic one. The second option that we have is alarm escalation. So when we create an alarm escalation, we have this option to run the rule every 10 minutes. We can reduce it to say 5 minutes and trigger this alarm. We can uncheck this. Do not trigger duplicate escalation, but we can uncheck this. So what happens is for the same RCA message, for the same alarm, we can send repeated email alarm for every 10 minutes. So we can select the monitors. So based on individual monitor also, it is possible. One is global, the alarm escalation rule. Instead of using as an escalation, we can make it use as a reminder option. So two options we can use within one feature that we have, alarm escalation.
Yes, Pak Dion, any question regarding the SQL query monitor?
Okay, enough sih. Enough. Maybe we can continue to next question. How
Yes.
about the other?
Yes. I think that we already mentioned that there is a requirement to monitor the RabbitMQ monitor, right?
Yeah, right. Correct.
So we need to monitor the
The that QQ.
Okay. Whenever there is a queue that dead, correct?
Yeah, correct. Send notification or alarm.
Yes. Can we show the RabbitMQ monitor?
Sure. So we have categorized it under middleware because it's one of the middleware technology. So RabbitMQ is there. I believe it's an open source. So here we show the performance information related to the RabbitMQ. So where the queue messages, alarms or rates or execution time, socket description, memory usage, etc. So these attributes we can fetch. Along with that, we have other tabs with which we can see if there are any problem with respect to the queues that are coming in. So of course, with acknowledgement rate, if it is high, we can understand, okay, there is some problem. It could be an application server where the acknowledgement is getting delayed, or it could be a database which is taking more time to respond. So of course, these are few attributes with which we can monitor the queues. Similarly, exchanges. Here we have the services that are running. We can monitor the services and we can see what type it is, whether it's direct or header or topic, etc. And what is the incoming and outgoing publish rate. So these are attributes related to RabbitMQ. And then channels, various types of channels data we can show. At the moment, we do not have the data for it. Let me check in our demo app manager. Sorry about it. Yeah, so channel name, what is the message, prefetch or unacknowledged or confirmed, etc. And then the connection statistics, the connection information pertaining to what IP address, what is the peer IP address, received and send packet rates. And configuration detail is respected to that RabbitMQ, what type of version it has, etc. So those information we show it here. So just how what we show the monitoring key attributes for other monitor type. Apart from that, associating threshold, actions, reports will be similar. The framework will be similar. Only the attributes will vary for individual monitor types. And if you are using RabbitMQ, are you using any Hadoop technology?
Not yet, sir.
Or something like Elasticsearch, or probably a proxy servers, HA proxy or Nginx? Are you using them?
Nginx and proxy server use, but Hadoop or Elastic maybe not yet.
Okay. You also have under web server or services, we have an option where you can monitor the classic Nginx or Nginx Plus. You can monitor these two. So under what is the version of Nginx? Is it Plus or the classic one?
Maybe Master Ruben can answer it, please, or Master Budi.
We have the classic version.
Classic. Okay.
Yeah.
So the Nginx classic version will give us statistics, basic statistics, obviously, because none of much of the attributes are available. So here we show the response time, the active connection, reading rate or request or writing state, waiting state, etc. So these are the key attributes that we capture for the classic Nginx. Of course, Nginx Plus will have additional information like zone, statistics, and other key attributes. Then we have other, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Salva. Does it matter if the Nginx is running on the Docker?
No worries. You can also monitor the Docker. So we have container that you can monitor. Docker monitoring is also there with our applications manager.
Okay.
Provided that Nginx server, like what we do is we need host name and a certain, like maybe a password in order for us to collect the data. If that is there, even if it is installed on VM or Docker or a physical box, you can monitor it. So you use Docker as well, right?
Yes, we use Docker.
Great.
Yeah,
Good to hear
Nginx
that. So
run on Docker.
lovely. Good to hear it. So you can also monitor the Docker environment here with Applications Manager.
Yes, Salva, get back to RabbitMQ. How can we configure whenever there's a death on queue and send the alert?
The concept is same. Whatever I discussed about database query monitor or SQL monitor, the concept is same. So what we need to do is we have to understand what attribute we want to monitor. Let's say in queues tab, we want to monitor the incoming rate. So based on the incoming rate
The
value,
state column, can we create a threshold for the state column?
you mean this column, state column?
Yes, state column.
It's a string value, so definitely we can create it.
Okay. So whenever there is a string,
Yes.
maybe like that or something like that.
Yes, I think I missed to mention it. That numeric value is there. When you create a new threshold value, there are two major type. One is numeric, the string value. So if the attribute is string, then we have to make use of the string value option. If the attribute is numeric, then we have to use this option. And then you can create the threshold value depending on that. And yes, of course, for state value, you can use string threshold profile. And if it matches the value that you provide, then based on the threshold value, the attribute will change. It's RCA.
Yes. Any question, Pak Dion or Pak Ruben?
Okay, enough. How about the other? If there is no question anymore, we can continue to the next question.
Okay. Basically, the other question is regarding our last meeting, right? It is about the how to monitor using that you said that you have many API on your application, correct? Or
Let me wait.
I think that.
Okay. Regarding that question, if we have a web application, but it's based on the microservice, so it will have mostly REST API, and then we want to monitor the REST API that REST API off or on. If off, so there is alert. Yeah, is the question like that, yeah?
Yes.
So Dion, you're asking about REST API, am I correct?
Yeah, about REST API.
Yeah, it is supported. So if your application supports XML format or JSON format, we can monitor it using our REST API monitor type.
If REST API off, then send alarm. Is it possible? Yeah.
I mean, yes. We here, if you see the REST API, when you add, we capture the availability also. If that API is not there, the availability will be down. So in turn, you will receive an email notification that the API is down. And if you want to monitor certain data out of that API, of course, you have an option where you can capture the XML data or JSON data based on the JSON schema or XSLT code. You can fetch very few attributes that you want to monitor.
Yes, Zelva, the customer have a scenario. One application might have maybe like 100 API or a function. So we have to register 100 REST API.
Yes,
that,
I mean
that will consume license, right?
Exactly. I mean, see, important or very critical REST API you can monitor through this option. Otherwise, you can go with APM Insight because that's going to show you the transaction level data. Or
web
if
application.
Yeah, web application. Or if a single API can give us more data, then you can also use that. There are other options as well. If you go with individual API, of course, the license will be counted.
Oh.
So you have to pick and choose what business critical APIs that you want to monitor, or you can check if there is an API that can give us a lot of attributes in a single API, and through that you can monitor.
Yes. So I also suggesting if the API can be accessed by the URL, can we monitor using URL or the URL sequence?
I mean, see, Hadi, there is a difference. When you say URL monitoring, it is a different. When you say REST API, it is different. If you just want to monitor the APIs available or not, then you can use URL sequence monitoring. Okay.
Yes,
But
Pak Ruben or Pak Dion, can you explain what is exactly the API means on the application? Is it like sub URL or function or?
Yeah. Of course. Okay. REST API divided by two, yeah. Web application or standalone REST API, or for example for integration to other provider. We have like I said before, we have a web application microservice. Uh, that web application, there is many REST API because we develop it REST API. So with this application, this behavior we should monitor by web application, right?
Yes.
Is it correct?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, for web application, yeah, for web application that we develop with fully REST API, yeah, we do not have any web page, only REST API. So can we define it as web application or only REST API?
no. I mean, see, your requirement is that you want to monitor if that API is up or not. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think
Is
that's another question. Yeah,
is the
we
API
have.
accessible by hitting the URL? Hello. The
Hello,
API
yeah.
can be open by accessing the URL.
Uh, yeah, of course, by accessing the URL.
Yes.
For example, we
So.
have application, for example, mobile application, and then we have we develop a application REST API. We want to know in our application, in our web application. For example, we have accounting application, right?
Mhm.
Accounting application, we develop fully REST API. Uh, it will consumed by mobile apps, for example.
Okay.
We want to know uh, the REST API in our application, accounting application. There is API dead or not, like that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
How about
if
that?
one application have one API, we can open by URL. Let's say we have application A slash API one. Can we open like that, or any other method
Yeah, like that. Is it using
like
web
that?
application or REST API?
So basically, one API is accessible by opening the URL. Am I correct?
Sorry, your question to me or to Safa?
To BFI, to you, I mean.
Oh, to me.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. That's REST API is accessed or consumed by other application. Like I said, mobile application.
So it can be opened by using a browser or URL like HTTP.
Actually, it can be used by browser, but usually we use Postman. Sorry, Safa, can you Could you do the demo web application? Maybe I can explain from that.
Yeah, just give me a second. Okay, just give me a second.
Yeah.
Just give me a second.
All right. So when we talk about web application, web application needs certain components. So we have components like SQL, IS to run that application. And we also need to monitor the transaction performance. So if there is any transaction that is happening during that point of time, we need to understand how this is happening. Is there any slow transaction that are carried out? So we have to understand that and capture it. For that reason, we have APM Insight module where you deploy the APM Insight agent where your application server is running. And from there, we can capture the statistics of each transaction or any API. I mean, transaction here is nothing but the API call or any transaction during that specific time that is happening in this through the IS server, we can capture it. That's the job of our .NET agent. And when the data is collected and pushed to the applications manager, we pass that information and show you it in a meaningful way. So what are all the data that we capture? So each transaction that has been invoked during that time, we show the statistics of whether it's a HTTP, PG-SQL, or app code. What are the exceptions that are occurring? Is there any slow transaction that are happening in the in that specific time? So those information we can capture. So this admin action or .do is taking around 2006 milliseconds, close to 2 seconds. Let's assume that it is taking more time, and we have to understand which traces of this transaction is causing the problem. So that's where we come into picture, where we show the slow transaction, at what time there was slow transaction, what are the components. And if there is a slow transaction, we can click on the request time, and that will take us to the summary of trace information. And through the trace detail, we can see what method was invoked, what all the queries that were getting executed, what all the sub methods that are getting executed. And then we can see, okay, which method is taking more time to execute. So this is what we can capture in our application. It could be that you can also capture certain key transactions. Key transaction, when I mentioned earlier, you can configure certain API calls that you want to monitor. Very specific API call you can monitor. And that API call, we can capture it here and show you the performance statistics of that. So this will help you to understand where the transaction problem is. Now, I was talking about REST API in such a way that, let me show you, that we also have an option where you can pull the data through REST API, that alarm, server details, etc. So those information you can fetch it from API. Now, I have a sample API for you. Let me pull it out. So this is the API where I'm pulling out all server information. So if I hit the enter, this will give us the data of all the servers that are configured in the applications manager. This is the REST API. Okay. And this is a JSON format. This is a JSON format. Okay. So what I do is, I mean, see, these are all the various types of data that you can get, but it is not required for me to monitor the complete list of attributes. So what I do is I take a JSON editor. Before that, let me take you to our app manager. Let me click add new monitor, REST API. I give a name. So this is the REST API URL that I'm going to give. So timeout. I'll just give 30 seconds for now. It is get username and password. I don't think so. I need it. So I'll leave it as empty. So it is going to be a JSON format, and I'm going to test it out. And let's see if it gets passed. So it is now passed, which means the API is right. Now I have added the monitor. This is REST API. Please note it carefully because the URL monitor is different from REST API. Now here, you have added one specific API. One specific API is that it is gonna list out the, there is a list data API, and within that API, we have list server information or list data information. So this list data information, I have chose list server. This is one API that will list all the server details. This is the API that I used. And then we have an option where I have added the API. You can see the response of the API, etc. And the response detail tab will give you the information pertaining to the API data. So all the data is there. Now, after this, we need to add or write a JSON schema. So I have a JSON editor for you. Here, I'm just going to copy and paste the API data that I've took. So this is the information. So here it is. So JSON schema. And these are the few numbers with which we can get the data. So from here, we can write the JSON code, JSON schema in such a way that we can only get certain attributes that I want. Okay. So what happens is I can choose whether it's, that is 0.1. Parent IP that I want, or whether it's multiple attributes that I will. So that we have to give it here, and specific attributes that I can pull, I have to provide it here. So once I select the attribute that I need, we will be listing the data here. And for that value, you can create threshold and configure the alarm. Whereas the URL monitor is different. URL monitor, what you do is you just go ahead and add the URL. That's it. Let me just take one URL. And I'm going to add the same, where is that API? Yeah, I'm going to add this URL as an API, URL monitor. And I'm going to add this. Let me give a name. So let me poll now. As you can see, this is the URL. This is a JSON API. I've added it as URL. It is monitoring the availability of the URL, response time, page size, etc. That's it. And even we have additional information, like you can do a content check. If there is something missing, you may get an alarm. This is additional feature that we have in the URL monitor. The next way of monitoring API is the REST API monitor that I mentioned. This is not only monitor the availability here, but you can also monitor. This is the availability monitoring. You can also monitor certain JSON schema value out of this. This is additional you can monitor. But the difference is that if you use one API, it's going to license one API count. And then in URL monitor also, there is, if you add it as just URL monitor, it will consume one license. But there is another type we have, which is called a sequence monitor. Sequence monitor, using a recorder tool, you can monitor this. You can capture the sequence of the data, and you can configure it in Applications Manager. So let me show you a quick demo of sequence monitor here in our demo OPManager. So earlier I showed you one URL, but in sequence monitor, you can use multiple URL monitoring from the same parent page. You can monitor. So that will be the difference of monitoring between these types: REST API, URL, and URL sequence.
Yes, Seva, if we monitor using URL sequence, it will only takes one license, one
Yes,
monitor.
yes, but it depends on the parent web page. Because, for example, let me show you.
It is not limited by the URL.
Up to 25 URL you can capture.
Up to 25.
Yes. So manageengine.com, this is a parent URL, and all these subclicks are the headers. So if I click on products, I can click on any of the tool, and if you see the web page, the page changed to AD. This will be the parent, that is manageengine.com will be the parent, and after slash, all these are child headers. So based on that, you can using a recorder tool. We have a specific recorder tool, a small file which we need to download, and through that we have to record the URL sequence that we want, and then we can save it in our using the recorder tool, and that's it. It will start monitoring it. So that's another way.
Yes, Pak Juan, Pak Ruben, what do you think? Is it
Okay,
going to be REST
understood, sir.
API or the URL monitoring?
Yeah, understood. That's a different point of view.
Because
Yeah.
if we use REST API, it will going to take a lot of license.
Yeah, maybe we can choose what REST API should we want monitor.
So is it going to be the REST API or the URL?
Mm, it can both of them, sih.
So basically, if you want to get the response or the value, it is going to be REST API. So if you going only need the availability, then we can use the URL.
Okay, not. Okay, not.
Okay.
Sorry. Can take a look again to web application, please. Especially in transaction. I want to know what component exists on there.
Okay, it's very simple. I mean, in web application, let me take you again.
So it's going to be agent based, right?
Yeah, it is agent based. The .NET agent has to be deployed where your IS server is running, and the agent will collect the data and send it to application manager.
Yes.
So every transaction that happens in your, I mean, through the IS server, that will be captured and send it to our app manager. So we capture the statistics of each transaction that are carried out here in your IS server. So we capture that and show if there are any exceptions, errors, if there is a slow transaction, what is the trace of that transaction, which SQL query is causing the problem, and if there are any hosts that are connected to it, we can show it using service map. So using the service map option, we can show which IP is connected to the application. And with that IP, we can click and see pertaining to the average response time, throughput, and the error count and the transaction data.
Okay.
And if the application is
please stop. Sorry, cut your explanation. Please back to transaction.
Sure.
No. You just scroll. Okay. Please scroll down.
Mm-hmm.
That's there is a API slash asterisk. Okay, imagine it's REST API. So isn't a problem, yeah?
No. See, the REST API is something
it's
different.
not count as license the transaction, right?
Yeah. How about that?
No. See, you have to understand. The REST API, usually the tools or the application will be provided in case you have a need to integrate that data with some other tools. So for example, we provide API or OPManager provide API so that you can integrate the data in your business intelligence solution. Now, that these API that you see here, these are actual APIs that are running in the background in order for you to execute certain processes. These are not the APIs that I'm talking about. These are different APIs that is required. Probably these APIs can also give you the data separately when you pull it out manually. Okay. This specific API that you see here, it is actually running in the background in the application.
Okay.
So the application is calling certain APIs for it to complete a transaction. So for those data, we show it here.
Oh, okay.
You can monitor through this. There's no problem. You can monitor through our REST API component for business critical APIs. Only for a website or the availability of the website, you can use our sequence monitoring, URL sequence monitoring.
Okay. Not.
Are you clear, or you have some doubt in it?
Yeah, clear.
Okay. If you have doubt, don't worry. Please feel free to ask me. I'll be more glad to answer it.
Sorry, can you click those URL? I want to know what information.
Sure. If I click on this API, yeah, it is going to give us the traces of the transaction and the response time of by component. Whether it's a HTTP or PGSQL, or whether it's an HTTP call alone, etc. So those data I can fetch it. And then if I click on this request time, if you see here, if I click on this, it is taking us to the trace tab, from transaction to traces tab. And it is giving us the summary of that tab. What is the slowest method call and its count? What method it was called? So this is the web page that is called, and this is the count and its duration.
Okay.
Similarly, trace data. Trace data will give us what method was called if it is a web application. And in that web method, is there any SQL query, or is there any other sub method that are taking more time to execute? If you see here, this is the website again. It is showing us the information.
Okay.
And then not only that, you can also see exceptions. I'm sorry, under traces, you have other options as well, like distributed traces are there. So distributed traces can help you out in understanding, okay, if there is any CPU or response time, if there are any query in a transaction that is taking more CPU or more resources, you can actually capture it through our distributed tracing. This is again a new features that we have. Error trace is there. That's one thing. All trace, error trace is there, like API transaction. You can see the trace information, what type of method it is called, what is the summary of it, etc. But we also have an option where you can capture the statistics of other information like distributed traces. So these additional feature will help you out in monitoring your application successfully or holistically.
Okay. Not. Okay. Pak Doni.
Ya.
Yeah. Okay, Pak. Enough ya. Last question.
Okay.
Number 4 ya.
Yes.
How to monitor desktop or console that always on the server. Maybe Master Firdaus can explain about this question, please. Is there Master Firdaus here?
Yes, Tony. Okay,
Oh,
Silva.
okay.
So we have some application, desktop application in the server. Should be always running. So we need to monitor this desktop application is always running, and then if the application is closed or time out or closed, this will be the trigger to alert Silva.
Yeah, that is possible. Those are common monitoring point. See, if a system is down, definitely the application will not work. So as soon as the system is down, as soon as the router is down, as soon as any link is failed, you're going to get an alarm and you're going to fix it. So that is there. Grouping features are there where you can group based on applications. You can group based on department or floor, etc. So options are available in our solution. More options are available where you can customize it and easily maintain your infrastructure.
Okay. So is it also possible to monitor if we know in the task manager we have the processes for the name all of the system or processes running, we can monitor by the name in the processes or not?
Yes, those options are available.
Available.
Yeah, you have an option. Let me show you a sample
Yes,
Windows
please.
server. You can monitor the service or process that are running, and the process
Which one?
information will be shown here. Maybe let me take a local machine. So if you see here, processes are running, and you have an option to change or edit the name also. You can name it. And if the process is down, you're able to get an alarm. This is also applicable in OPManager also. So server monitoring, infrastructure monitoring, you can do it in OPManager. Only business critical application that are hosted on top of a server, you can add it in applications manager, like IS server or MS SQL server. Those server, you can add it in our applications manager.
Okay, noted. So,
Yeah. Not only that, for server level in OPManager, you can you have an option wherein you can monitor the in application manager itself. You have an option where you can monitor event log, Windows task scheduler. As you can see, you can monitor the statistics. Let me show you where scheduled task is there, hardware event log is there. So if you have a specific event log rule that you want to trigger, definitely you can able to move. Since most of the features that you're asking is in terms of application manager, you can actually discover or add the server infrastructure in our application manager itself. Like are you using any vCenter or VMware, etc.?
VMware, I guess, yes, we use it.
Okay. This server that I'm showing you, it's a physical box. And under virtualization, we have a wide varieties of range, starting with VMware, Docker, Hyper-V, KVM, Kubernetes, OpenShift, Oracle VM, etc., RHEV. So these types of hosts you can monitor in our applications manager. And you can do the discovery via individual host, or maybe you can add individual virtual machine as a Windows server in applications manager. It is up to your choice.
Hi, hello, Salva.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. We from the monitoring application, there is also what you say about VMware, but we also buy the OPManager. And what's the difference between the APM and the OPM for the monitoring? For the vSphere monitoring, yeah.
Yeah, Ferdinand, thank you for bringing this question.
Okay.
We have few common monitoring types in both OPManager and applications manager. Okay. If you are purely depend on application manager, then we suggest customer to configure VMware or server in application manager. But if you have mixed environment like network, server, and application, then we suggest customer to go with OPManager based upon their requirement. So it is up to the end user choice.
Oh, okay. But basically it's the same.
Yeah. I mean, the UI may differ, but the concept, monitoring feature will be same.
Okay. Hey, can I ask another question?
Please.
Okay. I see there are a lot of lists of applications supported from this APM. What about if there's another product that comes to the market? What I mean is like Power BI. We already use in BFI the Power BI from the Microsoft, but can we monitor to the API, or do you plan to next release?
Okay, it is up to the end user, the application. Out of the box, we can't support each and other vendor. So in case if you have a need for it, we can take that as a feature request, and we will talk to our product management team and then decide on whether is there a feasibility to take that on a product roadmap. However, if you want to immediately monitor it, there are few monitor types with which you can monitor it. Of course, the Power BI has support for REST API. So REST API monitoring is available in Applications Manager. If you want to monitor the URL statistics, whether it's up or down, you can use URL sequence. If that Power BI is on-prem and it uses a SQL server, you can monitor its SQL server and maybe a file monitoring or database query monitoring. So these custom monitor types will help you to monitor that specific vendor to certain extent, not fully. But we can take the monitoring, the tool that you're using as a feature enhancement with our team.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, may I ask one question?
Sure,
please?
Dion.
Okay, I just wondering about the reliability. Is it possible this monitoring application is going down? If is it possible, how about the solve the problem?
We have an option called as failover for high availability. So for enterprise edition, we provide that feature. So if a primary server is down, the secondary will come up
automatically.
Yes. This is for standalone. For plugin OPManager, if you're using Application Manager as a plugin to OPManager, then OPManager has to be configured as a failover.
Oh, okay. How long that process?
It depends on the data. As soon as in few seconds, we'll come to know if the primary is down, and secondary server will send out a beat to the primary server. If it gets a message in a few seconds that the primary is down, the secondary will come up. The secondary will always be in listening mode. So the starting time will be less. The downtime will be less for switching over. Yeah, from switching from primary to secondary.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So any question again for BFE team?
Mas Dion, Pak Budi, dan yang lain ada pertanyaan, any question?
Dari saya cukup, Pak.
Cukup ya.
Enough from me.
Dari yang lain?
Maybe from Pak Ferdi.
Enough, thank you.
Okay.
Oke, Mas Doni.
From Pak Niko maybe. Enough.
Enough.
Ya gimana Pak Ruben?
From BFI enough.
Oke.
Mungkin udah untuk sesi ini udah selesai Pak ya.
Ya Pak.
Di ini aja Pak, nanti untuk rekamannya dikirim ke kita ya.
Oke.
Nanti sama MOM-nya ya.
Iya, baik.
Biasa.
Baik.
Oke. Dari Prodata, Bu Chunmoy dan Pak Doni gimana? Ada tambahan? Kalau tidak ada mungkin kita bisa close.
Oh, so far dari saya nggak ada Pak, dari Bapak yang ini. Nanti kita kirimin semua permintaannya ya Pak. Ya?
Oke.
Ya, oke. Thank you loh Pak atas waktunya.
Thank you.
Oke, thank you.
Ya, thank you
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you
Everybody, thank you. Thank you, Selva.
Thank you,
Thank
Selva.
you, Selva and all.
Thank you, Selva.
Thank you, team. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Was
much.
happy to
everybody.
discuss.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Silla, for your detailed explanation.
No worries,
And,
Vijaykanth. Thank you.
ProData team and clients, if you have any queries or any issues or any queries related to licensing or any other features, please do drop us a mail or please be in touch with our ProData team so that we can share those required information.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Have a nice day. Yeah.
Thank you,
Have a nice
everyone.
day.
Sadhana.
Nihal, thank you,
Take care and
everyone.
stay safe.
Have a nice day.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.